Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Best Books Ever. I'm Tyler, and today we are continuing Cirque du Freak series with book four. I think I've already lost count. Vampire Mountain by Darren Shan. Yeah, read the whole thing. Gonna talk about it. This, I believe, is the shortest book we've had so far. I am constantly surprised by how short these books are. I think it really does have to do with how many of them there are, and I think I mentioned this before, but I think the way it's set up is that every three books is like its own little trilogy almost. So this is kind of and it does make sense because this one definitely feels like okay, we're in Vampire Mountain and it's starting this whole new arc of stuff that's gonna happen. Some stuff that I'm remembering, but also just some stuff that they're clearly teasing as like the next level to the story. But yeah, I think this was only like 140 pages or something. It was crazy. I'm waiting, and I don't remember because this would be an insane thing to remember after all these years of the first and last time that I read these books like 10 years ago or maybe more than that. Probably, how old am I now? Yeah, definitely more than that. Probably like 14 years ago, probably at this point. Um, I'm waiting for these books to like, obviously consistently be like 150, give or take. And then like we get book seven or something and it's like 300 pages because there's just so much stuff that happens in that book. I don't know if that actually happens, but I feel like I've seen that with multiple like young adult type stories where it's like a consistent page count, and then all of a sudden you have a book in the middle that's like crazy long because there's just so much to tell at that point in the story. But yeah, anyway, this one was really cool. You know, I feel like there's part of me that finishes this book and is like, not a whole lot really happened in that book. But then you kind of go through it again, especially like I'm going through my notes and stuff, and I'm like, oh wow, there's actually a lot of stuff that happened, but also more stuff that they're really teasing of. Obviously, we have the end, which we'll now get into it right now. We have the end where they are, uh, you know, teeing up the trials of death, which I actually don't know. Is that what they're actually called, like in their world, or is it just the book called The Trials of Death? I think it's actually called The Trials of Death. I don't know. It doesn't matter. Gearing up for the trials, right? So the reason they're doing that is because Darren, you know, the whole thing with him and Crepsley, right? With blooding him so young, that trial before the trial, um, I was not expecting Crepsley to be like, I have no excuse. I have no good reason. There is no good reason to, do explain why I did what I did and why it was a good idea. It wasn't a good idea. It was bad and it was rash and it was foolish and I accept any punishment. Um, sort of the way he was talking, it felt like I was getting a little worried for him, almost to the point of like, did he do this on purpose? Like, is Crepsley low key like depressed and like he's old and like he's been wanting death or something? And so he did all of this just so, to end him or something. But I'm like, no, that's not, I feel like it's not like an honorable thing to do, you know? Um, but yeah, they are gearing up for the trials. And I'm very interested to see how this goes. I mean, if you want to get to the meta of it, this is only book four of 12. So, unless the book switches perspectives, which I wouldn't put it past Darren Shan, the author, to do something insane like that. I think it's a little bold to do that with a book series that is geared towards a younger audience. Like a fourth grader reading these books, I don't know that they would quite grasp the gravity of a main character perspective switch. Um, Not to say kids are stupid, but I think it'd be a very bold move. So I think it's safe to assume that he either wins the trials miraculously, because he is the main character, right? kind of thing the main character does, or maybe they get interrupted somehow and they have to postpone them, um, or maybe like throughout the trials he's doing very, very poorly, and they somehow are like, this was wrong, this is something we've never done before, we've never had a child do the trials before, maybe we should call them off and try something else. Maybe we were acting a little too rash when we decided that the trials were the right thing to do. I don't know though. I don't remember. like I said a moment ago, it's been about 14 years since I've read these books, so quite a while. But yeah, that is something very fun to look forward to. Obviously, the next book is called Trials of Death, so I'm assuming the entire book is going to be the trials. With these books being so short, the benefit to that is that they're very focused stories, like front to back. Even with this one, it's like, what is this book about? The Vampire Mountain. The first half or so is them actually scaling the mountain and like the whole journey and everything, and then the back half is them in the mountain, learning about what it is through Darren's eyes and all the little history lessons here and there and all the different rooms and stuff. So, I think that is a very advantageous thing that is due to the books being so short, is that they are very clear front to back. So I imagine, like I said, Trials of Death will be the entire story next time. But yeah, that's something very fun to look forward to. Also, they said that... Oh, I just hit something. Oh, no, we're good. Okay. I hit a key on my keyboard and very much hoping that didn't mess anything up. What was I going to say? Yeah. So they said that all the trials are different. So it sounds like there's like a pool of challenges or whatever, and 5 of them randomly are going to be picked. I don't know how random they are. Like, do they literally have like a glass bowl filled with little slips of paper and they pull from them, or are they like voted on with the princes? I wonder. It's interesting. I wonder if any of the ones that they named will actually see. Like, I think they said there's one where they swim to the bottom of a body of water to get a medallion. There's one where they have to like dodge a boulder or something. So very, very interested to see what trials they give him. Whether there is any sort of sway or if it is completely random. We'll see. What else do we have though? What else happened in this book? I think something very important is the little people, Mr. Tiny, Harkat, that little web of stuff that happened in this book, because they introduced a lot more to that sort of side of these characters and all that. So first off, we do have Mr. Tiny forcing Crepsley and Darren to take 2 little people with him. It's things like this that I mention because why would he do that? What? There's the easy excuse of like, oh, well, I, maybe have grown a liking to Darren and Crepsley and whatever, and so, probably Darren more specifically, and so, I want to make sure you get there all right, right as rain. He did give Harkat a message, but it's like, why 2 of them specifically? Like, he could have brought more, could have given 4 of them or 6 of them. One of them died, so there's no telling that more could have died, although I guess he does see the future, so he can do whatever. But if he sees the future, then, like, what does it matter, So I don't know. And also, like, there's the message, and we'll get into that in a second, but also, why now? Why is the message delivered now? You could deliver the message at any point. the reason that Darren and Crepsley are going there at this point specifically is because everyone meets every 12 years, so this is the perfect time to do that. But I mean, the princes are always there, give or take. There's always some sort of people there, and so Mr. Tiny could have given the message at any point, So there's things that make sense, but there's also things that's like, why? What is Tiny planning, if anything? Again, he seems to be some sort of god character. Um, Again, he can see the future, and everyone is deathly afraid of him. Um, so it's like, what are his motives? Or is he just messing with people? Is he just having fun, doing what he does? Because maybe he is like a god or some sort of immortal creature, and this is just how he amuses himself. I don't know. But again, on top of the little people stuff, some fun stuff. There's a hard cat can speak. I thought that was fun to see. Just kind of deepen the lore with their characters, because we don't really know a whole lot about them, and now we know. We know that they are, what do you say, like souls that were dead, but then they struck a deal with Tiny, and they don't remember what the deal is. I don't know if that's true with all little people or just some of them, like Hardcat. Doesn't remember what the deal is, which is tough, because then it's like, so do I just stay this forever? You know what I mean? So, he can kind of mold them to his image, whatever he sees fit. Like he took away the nose because it's like, I have to cover another mask or something because air is poisonous. They can speak, so I wonder if all of them can speak, or just some of them. So there's that. And again, just learning more about these little people. It's cool to see that, like, Lefty, who is now Hardcat, sort of saw everything. He knew everything. He wasn't just like mindless drone. There was a lot of questions about that. I'm anxious to see what happens with him from here on out, because now that we know his real name, now that he's spoken and stuff, now it's like, oh, he's kind of gelling with the group. So it's like, is he gonna have to leave? Like, so it's interesting. Just see what happens with him and other little people too. Because now it's like, ooh, now we know. We know other people know what they're saying, and that they understand us, and that they can kind of like talk with each other and stuff. So that's fun. The message that he gave, though, the Vampinese Lord, the night of the Vampinese Lord is at hand. Very scary stuff. Because apparently this could be like the end of vampires in general, and the reign of Vampinese is about to begin. Clearly this is kind of what they're setting up as, maybe not like the climax to the story, although it does feel like a climax to like this entire 12-book story would be like a war between the Vampinese and the vampires. I don't know, like, even now though, like, they obviously, the Mr. Tiny, like, his prophecies or whatever about like, oh, it's at hand and you guys will lose or whatever. I still don't understand, like, in real life, which is in this book, how would Vampinese win? Because it doesn't seem like Vampinese are like way stronger or faster than vampires, and their numbers seem to be way less, because I believe Crepsley said that there was only like a couple hundred of them, and there was like a few thousand vampires. So it's like, that's a big difference. That's at least a 10 to 1, so we'll see what happens with that as well. There always seem, and Darren kind of picked up on this too, where it's like there always seems to be a very eerie air to whenever people mention Vampinese Lord and this rumor and all that stuff. Most of them, well, maybe not most, I don't know exactly, but like a lot of them, maybe even the majority of them, believe that this is just some legend, some nonsense. But if it is true, doesn't sound good. I mean, it is very strange too because it's like we know that Vampires don't have the kind of hierarchy that vampires have. That's kind of one of their big reasons why they broke away. So it'd be strange for them to all of a sudden want to have a Vampires lord, want to kind of rule them all. I wonder if it's like one of them just gets a lot of respect and that builds and builds and builds, and finally he's like, I am the guy. Or if there is some sort of like voting system they have, or if there's some sort of outside influence, like somebody. No, excuse me. That came out of nowhere. That was crazy. Um, there's some sort of like outside person that they blood and are like, you're the one or something. Um, yeah, strange. But again, I feel like that's just everything to do with Mr. Tiny. Like everything to do with him, everything he says or does, you're just scratching your head and you're like, why does any of this make sense? How can any of this become true? So, and then I guess with that, a little bit of a connection off of that, Kurda is working to bridge the gap between the vampires and the Vampanese. That just doesn't seem, because again, Vampanese, I feel like it's easy to think that Vampanese are just like these monsters, right? Like there's these like mindless monsters, and they're not. They're the same as vampires. They just have different beliefs. You may think they're monsters for their beliefs, but they're still just Vampanese, the same way vampires are vampires. You know what I mean? Like they're not some animals working purely on instinct who aren't capable of rational thought. Like they're the same as vampires. They just kill when they feed and they, whatever, right? So what you may be thinking of would be like a mad vampire or a mad vampire, someone who has literally lost their mind. That's on either side. They want to get rid of those people who have unfortunately turned down that path. I just don't see them bridging the gap, because I feel like one of their tentpole beliefs is killing. Like that's their whole thing, is that killing is the right thing to do because you are taking a piece of the person that you kill, a piece of their soul, and you're kind of bringing it with you. Like they believe that vampires are wrong, that they only drink a little bit of their blood. They feel like it's a waste and it's disgraceful. It is disrespectful to the human that you're feeding from to only feed off a portion. It's like I don't see a world where vampires are like, okay, you don't have to stop killing. We can work something out. It's like no. There's no way. And I honestly just don't see vampires. I mean, yeah, I don't see Vampanese being okay with it either. I mean, I could maybe see them being like, fine, we don't care if vampires prime if they decide to not kill, but there's no way that they're going to accept stopping killing themselves, right? Like that, they're definitely going to continue doing that no matter what. So I just don't see it. You know what I mean? Even if they were able to do it temporarily, I feel like it would be very, very fragile and it wouldn't last very long if they were able to coincide, because I don't see certain issues backing down for either of them. And even if they were able to be like, okay, we're all one, but we can each practice our own beliefs, I don't believe that either. Like there's no way that for long that vampires would be able to sit in the same space as Vampanese who continue to kill, and vice versa. Vampanese would be able to sit in the same space as vampires who don't kill, because it's just inherently against what they believe to their core. So yeah, I don't see how this is gonna happen, but I guess we'll maybe see the attempt. I don't know. What else do we have? What else happened? Speaking of Vampanese, a bear ate a Vampanese. Now, that act in itself, not very important, right? We saw what happened to the bear, right? Like he, or she, I guess, went crazy because of the blood, right? Same thing would happen with a vampire. The important part is that the Vampanese was buried by somebody. Now, 99% of us are thinking Vampanese buried by another Vampanese. Had to have been. There's other possibilities that somehow a human stumbled upon them and buried them. Unlikely, right? Like, we know that Vampire Mountain is very, very far from any sort of human presence. Would a vampire have buried the Vampanese? I don't know. I don't know if that's what would have happened. Maybe. Unlikely. We're all pointing to another Vampanese, so we're all sort of seeing, okay, another Vampanese is here somewhere. Oh no. If that's true, I imagine we're going to see them pretty soon. Probably not in the next book, if the next book is completely dedicated to the trials. Maybe like the end of the next book. But it would be interesting because Vampanese, I believe it's part of their like treaty or whatever, is that Vampanese do not set foot on Vampire Mountain. So if true, that's going to cause a whole other thing. Yes, okay. Speaking of the trek to the mountain, I have one other thing with that. We learned that vampires and wolves are cousins. I thought that was fun. When I was reading it, I was like, this is really cool because I think in any story, whenever one of the characters has like a pet or like a familiar of some sort, that's always fun, where you can bond with this non-human. Well, I guess the main character themselves aren't human, but you got like a wolf, or in other stories when you have like a dog or like a cat for like a witch, or some sort of like mythical creature, something like that that kind of sits on your shoulder or something. I think that's always fun. So for him to find these wolves and them take a liking to him, I thought was cool, And then even at the end when they left, like Crepsley being like, "Oh, wolves never forget a face. You'll meet up again." Is like, yes, that'd be really cool. I don't know if they will. I don't know how many trips they plan on taking to Vampire Mountain. I mean, even in this story, right? Like, story's only so long. I don't know how many times we'll need to go to Vampire Mountain again after this, but that was fun. That was fun. For him to have this sort of companion, because that's one thing with Darren, right? Is that ever since his blooding, he's felt sort of alone. He has Crepsley, but Crepsley again isn't really a friend, and not in a bad way. It's just that he's more so his teacher and his mentor. Like friend. While it may be true in some sense, there is other things there as well. That's why him traveling with Evra when he had to leave the Cirque, him traveling with Evra when him and Crepsley went to the city to track Merlot, that was huge for him because again, yeah, he's not alone. He would have had Crepsley, but having Evra there was was a big relief and a big like cause for comfort, I guess. So even in this too, it's like, he's traveling with Crepsley, but like now he's got to hang out with these wolves that are pretty sick. So I like that a lot. And then just a few more things, I guess, when they were in the mountain itself. One of them is vampires cannot have children. So that that explains the lack of women, because I suppose there's probably a couple different reasons why that works, right? One, taking that away from someone is got to be tough, right? Like, hey, if because obviously it happens to both men and women, right? So like if you're a man, you wouldn't be able to have a child either, but the woman is the one who actually carries the child. So I feel like there's definitely more like a physical connection and an emotional connection, especially when given the possibility of like, listen, I could turn into a vampire, but you won't be able to have children anymore. It's like, whoa, hold on. There's the whole thing with like the like motherly instinct, right? So I'm sure that plays a part into it as well, where it's like, I don't want to take that away from a woman. Like that seems, but then also from the woman's perspective as well, kind of same thing, but on the other side of the coin, where it's like, I don't know, you know. So yeah, there's that. Just doesn't really appeal to them. So I guess that makes sense. But then also, to Darren's perspective, it's like we've never seen him. I mean, he's just a child, right? So he hasn't even really begun to think about the possibility of him wanting or not wanting children. And now for him to realize that doesn't matter, you know, he can't have them anyway, is huge. Again, we didn't have a thought in here. You know, like that thought didn't cross his mind when he heard it. He wasn't like, oh my God, I always wanted kids, you know? But to have that choice ripped away from you before you even really come of the age to start thinking about it, um, is tough, you know? And that just adds to the whole trial thing of like, you didn't notify, you didn't tell, you know, we specifically made brochures for vampires to give potential assistance, you know, and you forgot to hand yours out. Um, that's a big thing. I wonder if that'll come back around at any point. I wonder if like, I don't know if they'll do it again because we already saw like a little bit of romance with him and Debbie. I don't know if we'll ever see romance again. I mean, it's a long series, guys. You know, it could very well happen. But I wonder if that'll ever come up. Where he's like, I can't have kids. Maybe, I don't know. Couple more things. Darren earned a shake of the hand from Ara. We had the scene where he battled her, trained with her, right? He did pretty well for someone who was a half vampire child who's never really fought before. I mean, he did fight the bear, and he sort of kind of fought Wolfman, and he didn't fight Merlot, right? Did he? Wait, hold on. Let me try to remember. What happened with the Merlot stuff? He tricked. Oh, right, yeah. Tricked him. Goat in the bed. Crepsley got him 1-2 punch. Okay, so yeah, so he sort of fought Wolfman, and he fought the bear. That's pretty much all the fighting experience he has. I don't think Crepsley has taken any time to like teach him how to fight. Maybe like a little bit here and there, but nothing substantial that we can really know. So, in fact, he was able to last as long as he did, even get a couple good shots in. Very impressive, very very impressive. And then even, I think more so what the impressive thing was that led Ara to shake his hand was the mental aspect of it. Him not backing down, him having multiple chances to back down from the very beginning all the way to the very end, and him deciding not to. I think that's really what it was. So, again, this is another example of, I think, the main character effect, right? Where it's like, of course he would feel this way. Of course he would think this way. Not enough for him to win the bout, but for him to get the respect. And just another reason, a little drop in the bucket of special, and why Darren is an important person, important character in this story, why we're following him in this story and we're not following anybody else. Yeah. And the last note I have regards the Stone of Blood. Stone of Blood. Very important thing. It lets vampires track other vampires, whether they want them to or not. It's what helps, aside from the namesake of Prince, it's what helps you get turned into a prince when you get invested, I guess is the term. But yeah, so that's some good stuff. It also helps them like open up the doors and whatever to the hall or to the prince chambers or whatever it is. The big controversy over it, though, in Curtis' eyes, is that, well, couldn't, if Vampanies ever got their hands on this, we'd be done. They would be able to track us whether we want them to or not. and they would maybe not quickly, but they would eventually kill all of us. I don't think. See, as they were explaining this, I was waiting for there to be some sort of confirmation that it works the other way too. Like, are Vampanese tracked on this thing as well? Although I guess they're not, right? Because Vampanese, obviously, when you make more Vampanese, they don't put their hand on the stone and go through the initiation while vampires do. So yeah, I guess it doesn't. I guess it wouldn't track them. Yeah, I just worked that out just now. That makes sense. Yeah, again, that's what I think of, like possible foreshadowing of like, do they lose the stone? Again, we possibly have another Vampanese, at least one more Vampanese roaming the mountain. We might not, like I said, it might have been alone, although they were buried, which is strange. So it's like, then another vampire do it for some reason. I don't know why a vampire would bury a Vampanese. I don't think that's how that works. Yeah, I mean, again, if here's why I don't think it was a vampire, because if a vampire came across the Vampanese on the mountain, they would have immediately went to the princes or to the generals, I guess, because regular vampires can't see the princes at will. Only generals can. Would have immediately went to a general and been like, I just killed a Vampanese on the mountain. Princes need to know about this, that there was at least one Vampanese on the mountain, which they're not supposed to be. So that's why I don't think it's a vampire. The only option is that it's a human, which is highly unlikely. Possible. I think they even mentioned the possibility of a vampire hunter. Again, highly unlikely. It's been quite a while since vampire hunters have been prominent. So, again, not guaranteed, but the more, the option that we're all kind of leaning towards, that there is another Vampanese on the mountain that was maybe traveling with them or had to be traveling with them. Yeah. So, could they get their hands on the stone? You know what I mean? Could Kurta make a very boneheaded decision and trust another Vampanese with the mountain? Like, I don't know. I don't think Kurta's that stupid. I don't want to go that far. I know that Crepsley was accusing him of maybe, infusing some Vampanese ideals into the princes, and because once he becomes a prince, he has that power. So, I'm not sure though. I'm not sure. But that is it. That is. I almost knocked over my water everywhere. I almost knocked it over, and it would have been over. That is it. That's Vampire Mountain. Very good one. Again, like when I finished, I was like, not really a lot happened. And then you look back, and you're like, oh no, a lot happened, and a lot was set up. I think next book is going to be really fun. I'm very excited to see the trials. I don't remember. I lied. I do remember one trial that happens. I'm not going to say it. I don't want to spoil anybody. But I don't remember the other. There's 5 in total, right? So they said 5. I don't remember the other 4. I know one of them, and the one I'm remembering sucks. It's entertaining, but it's like I would hate to be a part of it. Although I'm sure any of us would hate to be part of any of the trials that the vampires could come up with. Yeah, I'm imagining it's the whole book. I don't know what else they would do. Although they'll probably do some sort of setup for the following book, which I don't know the name of. I don't remember what book 6 would be, because next is 5. But yeah, I guess predictions would be, I mean, like I said, unless they have a crazy twist for the last 7 books, I imagine Darren survives, and he only survives by beating the trials, or if something crazy happens to make them postpone the trials, or like he's on trial 3 or something, he has 2 left, and all of a sudden Vampanese, a group of Vampanese invade, or are caught invading the mountain or something like that. But that seems far-fetched. That seems, because that would immediately be like, oh, it's war. It's war. Like we can't look past this. It is now open war, and I don't really think either side wants that. So that would be very foolish. Um, but yeah, I guess that's it. Next time, read the entirety of Trials of Death. We're going to get into that. There's book 5. Yeah, I guess that's it. Please, I'm very bad at this, so I'm going to try to get better at this. Reminding everyone that this podcast is available as both a audio only podcast on different platforms and wherever you get audio stuff, as well as a video on YouTube. It is the Tiger Tea YouTube channel. I believe it is at the Tiger Tea. I believe. If I was smarter, I would have looked it up beforehand. But I know it's not just at Tiger Tea because I don't think it gave that to me. So I think it's at the Tiger Tea. I think so. And then there's also other stuff as well. There's other videos on there as well. There's some stuff I'm going to be bringing back very soon that has nothing to do with books. So if you want to check that out, that'd be very fun. But there is also a whole backlog of stuff that I've made in the past that is very fun, and also most notably some stuff I made with my friend Raymond. Some videos that we made recently, and maybe we'll start making them again. Who knows, anything could happen. But yeah, there's some fun stuff there on the channel, so go check that out and read the book Trials of Death, and we will see if Darren survives.